Hi, Melanie.
Hi, Randy.
How are you this evening?
I'm fine, thank you.
Am I right? Can I ask you a question, a personal question?
That depends how personal.
Am I right in thinking that St. Bartholomew's Day is also St. Melanie's Day?
It is. He's my personal saint. It's my birthday. You're right.
Happy birthday to you for Sunday.
Thank you very much.
Do you want me to sing a song to you?
No, I don't
All
think the
right then.
listeners are quite ready for that. So I don't
Okay.
know. Maybe they could
Okay.
put some comments below if they want to hear Andy sing. Write
Uh,
some comments below.
There you go. So let me ask you a question then. Since St. Melanie's Day is the same as St. Bartholomew's Day, I guess you know a fair bit about St. Bartholomew.
Well, what's to know? That's the whole thing,
Yeah.
And is he Nathaniel?
Well, some commentators seem to think yes, he is, and some commentators seem to think no, he isn't. So who
So we don't
knows?
really know, do we? But of course,
Mm.
his name could be Bartholomew, couldn't it? So
Yeah,
so it could be Bartholomew. Could like be his surname.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Son of Ptolemy.
So it
And
could
what
be Nathaniel, son of Ptolemy, couldn't it? I suppose.
it could be, they could have been brothers, twin brothers, and
Well, if
people
it's
got them mixed up.
Nathaniel, he's already got a brother, hasn't he? So
Well, yeah. So where did Bartholomew minister?
well, that's another question as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it depends who you read, but maybe he did travel around a bit like Paul did, because
Uh-huh.
Jerome and Eusebius say he went to India. But
Right.
there's also a very strong tradition of him being in Armenia.
Yeah.
But he also could have been in Mesopotamia and Parthia.
And Ethiopia.
Yeah,
So who knows? And how did he die? Because there's about three different theories, aren't there, as to
yeah,
how he died.
there are. But there's one commonality between them all. And I think
So
that's
go
the
on.
key thing. Well, he was martyred.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he could have been beaten up and thrown into the sea. He could have been executed because he converted some bigwig, or he could have been crucified.
It was the king he converted in Armenia, wasn't it?
But there's no record of that particular king.
Polypius or somebody I was reading.
Yeah, but they can't actually find any record of him. Mind you, of course, that doesn't mean he didn't exist because you're
Well,
finding
no.
that with Old Testament history. I'm loving it. They're going, oh, we've found some evidence that this king or this person that we have said has been a myth for years actually existed. Oh,
Yep.
really? There's a surprise.
And then some of the places we know by different names today. So there is another theory that he was in Azerbaijan. Of course,
Mm.
Azerbaijan is part of Mesopotamia, or is it Armenia, isn't it? And his church got knocked down when the Russians invaded.
Yeah, I read that too, which is a bit sad. But at least you've got a little photograph of it. But
Did
I
you?
don't think we need to worry too much about the detail, do we? There are two things in common from all of this. One is that he took his faith seriously,
Yeah,
and even though we have not really got any record of what he did, he took the gospel out there,
yeah,
and he was willing to die for his faith, which he did do. However, he died. It seems that he did die for his faith.
yeah,
So
yeah,
unknown, more or less unknown apostle. Yet he did all of that for the Lord. And of course, he wouldn't
yeah,
be unknown to the Lord, would he?
yeah. So how does that relate to Sunday's gospel reading?
Well, I think the first, the passage from Luke, well, I think there's two passages that we can probably directly sort of talk about. Um, so you've got the passage in Luke, and it's an intriguing one to choose, I thought, because
Hmm.
so it's at the Last Supper, isn't it? And Judas has, just done his thing. And then
Yeah.
there's this dispute over who's the greatest. You think,
Hmm.
really, at this time? And
Yeah.
Jesus has to teach them about humility, doesn't he?
And it almost the disciples, it almost seems trivial after what's just happened with Judas, as you sort of alluded to. Judas is sort of there's all the stuff about betrayal, Judas has legged it. And then you come out with, well, who's the greatest? Get a life, please.
But because I've got a JC Mail. I got a JC Rad. JC Rad had actually loads to say on these passages, but
Uh-huh.
there's one about pride because I think it's quite key really. He says the sin before us is an old one. Ambition,
Yeah.
self-esteem, and self-conceit lie deep at the bottom of all men's hearts, and often in the hearts where they are least suspected. Thousands fancy that they are humble, who cannot bear to see an equal more honoured and favoured than themselves. Few indeed can be found who rejoice heartily in a neighbour's promotion over their own heads. The quantity of envy and jealousy in the world is a glaring proof of the prevalence of pride. Men would not envy a brother's advancement. They not had a secret thought that their own merit was greater than his. And he goes on to say, usefulness in the world and church, a humble readiness to do anything, to put our hands to any good work, a cheerful willingness to fill any post, however lowly, and discharge any office, however unpleasant, if we can only promote happiness and holiness on earth. These are the true tests of Christian greatness.
Yeah. While you're on that, following on from Ryle, can I read you a story that Dale Ralph Davis tells in his commentary on Luke?
Yeah, go on.
You sure? You don't mind?
Well, it'd be nice to have a little bit of story time.
Okay. I can't find it now. I've lost it. Oh yeah. Here you go. You ready for this?
Am I sitting
I,
comfortably? Yes.
I am pleased to hear it. Not long after Gerald Ford became the US president, he took a vacation in Vail, Colorado to do some skiing. One night, while he and his family were eating dinner, one of their dogs had an accident, and one of the red-jacketed White House stewards hurried to wipe up the mess. But Ford shot out of his seat immediately, took the towel away from the steward, and cleaned the floor himself. No man, he said, should have to clean up after another man's dog. He was the president who cleaned up dog messes. And that's a faint echo of the pattern Jesus leaves his disciples. I am among you as the one who serves. And Dale Ralph Davis goes on, he highlights as well that pride problem that we all have, even though we hate to admit it, and we ignore it. We all want to be the best, the greatest at whatever we feel we're good at.
Don't you think that story would be even more powerful if it was the servant's dog that made the mess and
Yeah,
the president still got up and cleaned it? Because that would be more Jesus-like, wouldn't it? In a
that'd be
way.
even more so. But I think just the very thought of the US president getting up and stopping his stewards from cleaning up the dog mess because he was going to go to get down on his hands and knees and do it is
Oh,
quite
for sure.
something.
Yeah, no, I agree for sure. So I think so Bartholomew would have been there getting that little bit of teaching, but
Yeah.
it goes on a
Was
bit more
was he
positive.
one of the ones involved in the dispute?
Well,
Who
we don't
knows?
know, do we?
And the other thing, what I liked about the use of the word a dispute, it was audible. This was happening in public, not sort of in private. It's sort of public. That struck me as sort of quite an interesting one.
I suppose that it sounds like they're always jockeying for position a little bit, the disciples,
It does, doesn't it?
um, which is what makes verse 28 and 29 all the more amazing, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
Because although they've he must have had to sigh and roll his eyes so much, really, over the disciples, always getting things wrong and always fighting and missing the point, all the rest of it. But actually, he says, you've stood by me and I'm going to give you the kingdom.
yeah. And again, another interesting question the commentators raise. I mean, again, Dale Ralph Davis sort of points out is Jesus actually appreciative of their company? Is he grateful to them? And that struck me as quite an interesting thought that Jesus is grateful for the disciples following him. What an amazing thought. that blew my mind when I was thinking about that earlier today. That Jesus was actually grateful to them for standing by him. Just sorry, that's just a side
Yeah.
shoot, I suppose. But
Well, until the actual arrest and that they do, don't they? Because he was getting loads of grief all the time, wasn't he? But they stuck by
yeah,
him and wanted to learn from him and were with him. And it must have
yeah,
brought some human comfort for him, as well as knowing that he was training them up to do the work for
yeah,
afterwards.
yeah,
Mm. But I thought that was lovely, and that reminded that actually they're gonna eat and drink at the table in his kingdom, and they're gonna have thrones. They don't need to jostle for position now because there's going to be 12 thrones for them later on.
yeah. And there you go. Um, so okay, as you said, they're jostling for position. They want this earthly glory. Well, actually, Jesus is going to give them two amazing privileges. They're going to be celebrating with him at the heavenly banquet, and they're going to be sitting on thrones with him. What could be more greater than that? And
Mm.
in this life, we're set free to serve. Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, I do think so. And I can't remember which one of the commentators said it because I didn't write down who said it, but I thought this moved me. He looks at our graces more than at our faults.
Yeah, yeah,
And I thought,
yeah,
well, that's wonderful, isn't it?
yeah. It is.
And
It's a
when we see
beautiful thought.
moving on to the second, the reading from Acts, we can assume that actually they've the words that Jesus had said to them, we're told, aren't we, that with the Holy Spirit, everything that Jesus taught them was brought back to their minds again. So the disciples are able to live that out then, aren't they? Because now by Acts 5, they're doing signs and wonders, and they actually, people are holding them in high esteem at this point. And they're carrying the sick to see them, and they're doing the most wonderful miracles. They're putting their faith into action, all of
Yeah,
the disciples. And of course it would get harder. Those were like the sort of the golden days, weren't they, when everything was going wonderful. It's not long before they start getting persecuted. And it seems that Bartholomew has travelled far and wide to take the gospel at the risk of his own life and no doubt his own health, travelling to those far off places.
yeah, yeah.
Even though he's not got loads of glory. He's not Peter, is he? You don't get loads of church. You get one or two churches named after him, don't you? But not that many.
But, but we
Not
know
in this
next to
country.
nothing. We know next to nothing about Bartholomew, do we? He's only named two or three times, isn't he, in the Gospels?
But we know the Lord he served and we know the gospel he taught. And
Exactly.
we can imagine that there are Christians today that are Christians because of the message that Bartholomew taught, that person taught, that person taught, that person
Yeah,
taught, and so on down through history. So
yeah,
there'll be who knows how many millions of people are in heaven because of what he taught, even though we don't really know much about it.
yeah. So a wonderful example. You're going to be preaching on him?
Yes, I'm actually working on my birthday this year. I know
Oh,
it's sad, isn't it?
oh, yes. You sure you don't want a song? Should we get Sam in to sing a song? He could sing Happy
Oh,
Birthday.
thank you. I think that's all right. We've been singing number blocks all day, so
Right,
I think we need a rendition of number blocks. But
oh well.
but there we are. But it'll be interesting to preach it because I think there is an important message there. Actually, all caught up in that message of humility. It doesn't matter if people know your name. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter if great tales are told about your deeds. What matters is, are you faithful to Jesus? Have you got a heart of service? And are you
yeah,
teaching his message?
yeah, yeah. Great. Well, have a lovely birthday.
No, thank you very much. I take
Are
it my
you doing?
card and me money's in the post, is it?
I don't think so. Are you going to do anything special for your birthday?
Well, hopefully my family will take me out for Sunday dinner.
Okay. Well, enjoy it. Don't
Thank
eat too
you.
much. Ta-da.
Ta-ra.
Bye.